Today's episode of Voices River City is brought to you by the California Association of Realtors. Realtors, total assholes. Did you see the mailer that the realtors put out in Sacramento City Council District 5 in that race mentioning us?
No.
Yes.
Wait, say more. I missed that.
So they did a hit piece on Katie Maple, who's the progressive running in that race. They've been coming after her for months. And in their mailer, they quoted her on our episode. Basically, she's talking about taking special interest money, right? So she's talking about why she doesn't take money from them or from cops. And the quote they give is, "It's an unsaid thing that everyone knows that when people give you money, when groups especially give you money, they have expectations of you." She's talking about why she refused cop money. And they use that to try and like paint her as, you know, being in the pocket of like big cannabis. And then the citation is Katie Maple on River City Voices podcast. Get it right. At least get it right.
Right.
At least get it right. They sent so many awful mailers out about her. I couldn't even. I think this race specifically was probably one of the dirtiest races I've ever watched. And I mean that across the board, you know, between Gabe, between Angelique, between Katie Maple, and the realtors were coming for her super tough. I got three different mailers trying to convince me that she wasn't even from here. And I was just like, y'all are a hot mess.
She doesn't even go here, the Mean Girls argument. But that made me happy. You know, I really thought our podcast made it when the LA Times tried to say that we were terrorists, but I think we've reached a new level with the California Association of Realtors trying to source us in their hit pieces. I love it.
I'm proud of us.
Hey, we're going places.
Yeah, I'm proud of us. That's awesome.
Yeah, you know, 80,000 this week, 80,000 downloads and views. So we're moving. People are watching and listening. So happy about that. Speaking of which, yeah, right. Thank you. Well, speaking of which, why don't we get started on this episode? We've got a couple of amazing guests today. We've got some elections to discuss. Let's jump across with the music.
Voices, the things they said, voices, some from those dead, all the voices heard. Voices, things we say, voices, they're in your head, all the voices heard.
Oh, hello, everyone. You have Kempa.
And Flo. And
Matt.
Yep.
And Joyce.
That's right.
Yes.
Yes.
So we have two very special guests today in Mac and Joyce. I guess I'm going to introduce you first. You're going to be on talking with us today about Camp Resolution, which is a really, really important thing that's happening here in Sacramento that people need to know about. So Mac is a community advocate, fighter of many fights, and just an all-around amazing person. And Joyce is another all-around amazing person and a Camp Resolution resident. Joyce, I think I saw you speak once or twice too, actually at a press conference. So I'm very excited to have both of you here today. So on the second half of the show, we're going to discuss Camp Resolution, but I wanted to dive in real quick. This is the day, well, as we record, the day after Election Day. It was a very interesting midterm election, and we wanted to do a very kind of quick and dirty recap of a lot of it. Obviously, in California, you don't know shit about fuck for another month, but we can actually discuss results in other places. So national level, Flo, why don't you tell me how to go? Like, I was told that there was going to be a red wave. Was there?
Yeah. I was told that there was going to be a red wave as well. I was told, we should get our tampons and pads and menstrual cups and all the things ready because the wave was a coming, and then the wave did not come. So I don't know if that means that we're pregnant. I don't know if that means that, something else is going to ride. If we're late, who knows, Joyce? Who knows? But
thankfully, reproductive rights have been reaffirmed this election. So if we are,
yes,
we've got recourse.
That were already affirmed, and that the Democratic Party just used to like manipulate us to get us to vote in this election.
Scare people to come out.
Pave their 100 and then pave their way to try and continue their blue wave next round. So it was interesting.
Yeah. So there's some good stuff, right? That happened. There were 5 states that had, after Roe v. Wade was overturned earlier today, there were 5 states that had some legislation on their ballot. 3 of them, I believe it was California, Michigan, and Massachusetts, all had constitutional rights to abortion and birth control and other things like that on their ballots that all passed. And then there were 2 other states, I believe it was Kentucky and Montana, that had some really regressive things on their ballot that voters soundly rejected. And so I think the takeaway message has been, from all 5 of those is that there's a weird thing, I think, culturally about Americanness in terms of people don't like it when you take away their rights. And so until this summer, everybody most of the people who were alive, who were under, let's say, 50, had enjoyed, this right and had taken it in some ways for granted, or at least, and maybe not for granted in a negative way, but just like, this is the way things are. And so when you take something away, it makes people angry. Right. Yep. And so I think that's what we're seeing here is like, even people who previously were like, I'm not sure I, want to have an abortion. I don't know how comfortable I am with it, or like, but you don't take away my right to choose, right? Because it was now assumed. And I think that's the power of declaring something a right, which will be a really nice segue into talking about housing later in our show.
Let me get to that. Yeah.
So yeah, but in terms of just representational, democracy, in terms of our elected officials, we were expecting that there were going to be all of these Republicans that were going to be elected across the nation, and that both the House and the Senate potentially were going to, in their term, turn red, and also a lot of the local legislatures as well. And we didn't see that happen. And so thankfully, this time the credit is being given where the credit is due, and that's to Gen Z for showing up and stemming, the tide and saying we care about a lot of things. And so shout out to, the young people for
Sunrise Friends.
Thing. Yeah, we appreciate you.
And it's also an affirmation of the progressive side of the party. When you have folks that younger people believe in, that they, are like, oh, you will fight for the environment, you will fight for our future, they'll come out, they will vote. And what Democratic losses we did see throughout the country, these were the moderate Democrats. They were the ones that didn't really excite folks. And so that wasn't much of a surprise. I'm going to break down the numbers a little bit. So
except
okay,
for my previous home state of Georgia, I lived there for 4 years when I was in college, and Georgia is on my hit list right now because you don't deserve Stacey Abrams. You'll never deserve Stacey Abrams, and she is an international treasure. And what you did to her is messed up.
She's amazing. Right. And so this is the Democratic nominee for governor in Georgia. And honestly, with her previous statewide races, she has kind of single-handedly built the infrastructure for Democrats to organize in other races. She has turned that state effectively a bluish purple at this point, which is really exciting for the kind of the Sun Belt. She did lose, as Flo mentioned, but Senator Warnock, I don't think would be named senator if not for the path that she paved. So,
and Joe Biden would not be president were it not for the work that she was doing. And also just a shout out, like not just her campaign, but also her life's work is about enfranchising historically disenfranchised communities and really getting out the vote. And that's what her organization does even before she was running herself. So shout out to her for all the good work, and you will never be forgotten. And we're going to get you a postage stamp too.
She's your Spelman sister, correct?
Absolutely.
She is my Spelman sister, absolutely. And Raphael Warnock went to Morehouse. So
I didn't know that. Cool.
Special places in my heart for sure.
So let me break down the numbers here. So in the Senate, the Democrats were considered to have maybe a chance of maintaining control of the Senate. But it looked like the Republicans were going to take that down. Now, looking at the numbers, it appears the Democrats will maintain power there. Keep in mind a 50-50 Senate. That is going to be in power of whoever the president's party is, because the vice president is the tie-breaking vote there, right? So right now we're at about 49-49, I think, in the Senate. It looks like Nevada is going to look good for the Democrats, and it also appears that Arizona's in the bag. And then the biggie is Georgia's going to go down to a runoff again, and Stacey's going to put on her running shoes and get out the vote, I'm sure. But
December 6th.
That's the biggie. Yeah. And then on the House side, there were some losses on the Democratic side, very much expected, but nowhere near as much as we thought. So the Republicans are going to gain the House, but they probably will not have the Senate, which means Biden can make appointments, things like that. And then where we saw Democrats lose, again, as I mentioned, it's mostly mods. They lost in a couple of interesting places. Florida totally trounced, absolutely trounced. That is Republican territory. Democrats need to stop throwing money over there. The rest of the Sun Belt, go for it. You got it. But don't stop with Florida. And then New York, actually, where voters appear to be pretty frustrated with the Democrat status quo, but obviously you have no other recourse when you're in a blue state, because Republicans are certainly not the answer, right? So they just, they have lost a few seats there. Now, is there anything else I need to cover there? I guess that's about it.
I just want to shout out another podcast that I listened to, This American Life. They did a really great episode recently about the gerrymandering that was happening in Ohio. And they talked also about some of what was happening in New York, and how New York handled it much better than Ohio did. So Ohio just voted with a very gerrymandered map that was sent back from their state Supreme Court 5 times. I did not know anything about this until I listened to the episode, because they agreed, they had a ballot measure that said we're going to stop the gerrymandering, and then decided they still wanted to gerrymander, and they just refused to listen to the state Supreme Court multiple times over. So this is actually an issue that's probably going to be taken up in our federal Supreme Court, because there are several challenges that are coming up that are potentially are raising questions. The interesting thing, though, the questions that are being raised are around what role the governor, what role the state Supreme Courts have in being able to make these decisions over legislatures, and a bipartisan, it seems, group of Supreme Court justices across the state are all in opposition to the legislature basically saying we don't have to listen to you. So it will be very interesting to see if this does end up going to the Supreme Court, how that ends up playing out. So
interesting. Well, cool. Yeah, let's keep an eye on that. 538 during the sort of redistricting conversations, they covered that state by state pretty well.
Yep.
But it's hard to keep. How do you keep track of all that, right? 50 states. But this is really important, and it's part of what really bastardizes our, quote unquote, democracy and disenfranchises a lot of folks.
Yep.
Mhm.
Oh,
And it
one more.
happens on both sides
They
of the
have to strip
aisle,
her.
right? Like
It
the
does.
They have
Democrats
to
have
strip
tried
her
to
rights away.
gerrymander too. So in Ohio, it happened to be the Republicans, but they're not the only ones that do it. Like corrupt
Oh, no.
systems act in corrupt ways.
Yep.
You were saying,
Mhm.
Mac? I'm sorry.
None of this is surprising when they have to take our voting rights away.
Yeah.
That they're going to actively be doing that. They're going to be actively disenfranchising our ability to have voice in these spaces. And so, I mean, and that's why when you talk about like Stacey Abrams and just the work that she's done out there to ensure voices in those southern states are being heard because of the very real intention behind a lot of these establishments is to take those voices out of the room,
Yep.
to make sure that they can't be there. So this is something that I'm like, in a couple of states, I'm like, now we need to look at it for entire democracy that already has been bastardized, and you can see it based upon like what's happening now. You know.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Couple more things on a national level. Big progressive wins. So John Fetterman won the Senate seat in Pennsylvania over Dr. Oz. What is going on?
You know, I guess I
moment-
have to speak a little bit to this because it's like my home state of Pennsylvania. The idea, first of all, Dr. Oz doesn't live there. We've talked about on the show as well people who
From
don't
Jersey.
actually live where they say they live.
The land of Snooki.
Yes, but he does not live in Pennsylvania. And it was just so clear because he would like say things that are just like, if you lived here, you'd know better. But also, you know, I don't think when he came on the scene as Oprah's kind of, you know, like Oprah platformized him and Dr. Phil and several other folks. And I don't think anybody realized, like, we thought he was just like the, you know, eat more vegetables and drink your water kind of guy. And then things just started getting stranger and stranger and stranger, even on his show.
Yep.
And then he decided to take this, you know, kind of swan dive into national politics out of nowhere with no experience. And run this campaign that was just like, wow, like who saw this coming? And so Oprah last week came out and was just like, yeah, no, I'm not supporting him. And I just thought that was so funny. Like, not
I
that I'm
love it.
usually taking voting advice from billionaires, but I'm just like, oh, that's hilarious. The person who gave all of this was like, yeah, you're no good.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you know, it's a Rust Belt state too, and Dr. Oz is this like, you know, he's like a media elite, right? That has his own TV show and is like he doesn't really speak to your like Pennsylvanian worker necessarily. And meanwhile, Fetterman, like, yes, he's like Harvard educated and all that, but he's like this 6'7" tatted up dude with a goatee. Like, I think I saw somebody tweet today that like he's going to be the first ever senator to wear and one shorts on the Senate floor. He's like he looks like, if you're like, what does a union look like in human form? That's John Fetterman, right?
Yeah.
And so he ran a very successful campaign, even after going through a stroke, even after having, you know, these speech impediment issues during his recovery. Just a really impressive campaign, and exciting in the sense that it shows us that economic populism works. It is a winning strategy. Democrats ran the show in Pennsylvania. You know what? They did it in Michigan as well. And then places where they didn't do it, they didn't do so hot. And it's something, I mean, this whole election appears so far to be really the progressives, like, I fucking told you so. That's what it all seems to be so far. Can we let's just I guess let's move on to also the, you know, the squad, right? The 6 progressive / socialist Congress members. They have added 4 more members at the very least this election. So now they are 10. So these things take time, but it does seem like things are moving in that direction, which is nice to see.
Yes. And I also just wanted to shout out that Gen Z has its first member of the House. So that
25-year-old?
25-year-old Maxwell Frost. And
Wow.
so it's just nice to see like the change. I remember when we had our first millennial representative and I was like, oh my gosh, like we're old enough to do that. Like we're not the kids anymore,
Right.
So it's just kind of cool. So, again, shout out to Gen Z for having one. There will be more because that's how time works.
Yep. No,
Maybe
that's
they'll
really
be able to
exciting.
show. Maybe they'll be able to show some of the Republicans how to use memes and stuff. Like, do you guys remember after January 6th, that they were in the White House with memes trying to explain
Yes.
voter fraud, and like maybe Gen Z will be like, let me show
Yeah.
you. Right.
For those who aren't going to be watching this on YouTube, I have this little sign that says "Everyone hates millennials until it's time to convert a PDF into a Word document," and I keep it.
Love that.
So there'll be a Gen Z equivalent
so
of that
seen.
coming up.
That one's very niche for us, our generation too,
Yes.
because like Gen Z doesn't do that anyway. They're just like, oh, whatever, but like Google Docs or some shit.
Right. Yeah.
And then everyone older, like, has a little trouble with that. Yeah.
Yep.
Well, I love that. Okay. So let's come to California. We don't I want to get to the camp resolution thing soon. So California, the way our elections work is we don't get results for upwards to a month after election day because we do all these mail-in ballots. We create all of these opportunities for people to be able to vote, same day registration, all these other things, because we do all this voter enfranchisement in California that you don't get it in other states. It does take a little bit longer to process through our votes. So I guess as far as California goes, a lot of these races, you already kind of know who wins. All the Democrats won their statewide office, including Malia Cohen, who a lot of newspapers they were rooting for the Republican, which is bullshit. But she appears to be on her way in. Flo, how are the props doing?
Yeah. So right now it looks like, again, California does have the constitutional right to abortion and birth control. So that was Prop 1. It looks like both of the propositions that were about gambling, one was sponsored by some of the tribes to be able to allow in-person sports betting. The other one was to allow mobile sports betting. Both of them appear slated for defeat.
Mm-hmm.
Then there was the proposition that would allow a percentage of the existing school funding to be spent on arts and music education. That appears slated to pass. In the middle, we have Prop 29, which was about protecting dialysis patients. And as much as it pains me to say it, it looks like a third time it's going to go down in flames because
they added the sentence about it's going to cost tens of millions. Exactly.
Yes. And that literally and I was like,
that one sentence.
I was like, really? Like, we could do a whole episode on just how immoral DeVita and Fresenius are, because the idea that they were actually advertising in dialysis clinics and telling people that if this passes, their life-saving treatment that they need sometimes multiple times a week will be taken away from them is a level of immoral that no one should stand by. And I mean, yeah, there's a whole conversation there about why this wasn't just a bill that passed easily through the legislature. Like, there's so much happening. But unfortunately, that one is likely going to or has already probably died at this point.
Fourth time's the charm.
Yeah, fourth time's a charm. I said, when we fight, we keep fighting. And then there's Prop 30, which was the initiative that was funded by Lyft, but was not initiated by Lyft. And that's a really important distinction. They were invited in 18 months later, and it really was about, cleaning up our air by being able to fund wildfire prevention and also expanding the electric vehicle infrastructure into communities that often don't have access to electric vehicles. vehicles and making it affordable for people who were low and middle income. And unfortunately, because the governor didn't want his own taxes and his friends' taxes to go up,
because he's a multimillionaire.
He said, nah, we're not going to do that, and opposed it. And so that one, unfortunately, looks like it probably didn't pass either.
Shout out to America's landlord, Steve Viglio, who was a strange bedfellow for us on this one, because he was being paid to fight for this one. He's licking his wounds today.
Yeah, and then Prop 31 was the last statewide proposition. It was about banning menthol, and luckily it looks like we were able to do that. So shout out to
devastating. Devastating.
Well, listen,
I had a Camel Crush in the morning last night.
The nice thing is it's not criminalizing anybody who's using menthol products. It's only criminalizing prohibiting the retailers from selling them. And given the very predatory way that menthol cigarettes and other tobacco products were marketed in low-income communities, and in particular Black and Brown communities, I say tell Philip Morris to kick rocks.
I mean, I voted alongside you on it.
Thank you.
It's devastating.
I mean, listen, I'm not part of the No Fun League. I'm just, public health.
Yeah, this is why I appreciate this is why I appreciate like being tight friends with a public health professional. Like, I know that I do things that are bad for me. And like, it's kind of nice when we legislate them, like, so those things aren't around me anymore. Like, because then it's like, oh, then I'm probably not going to do it because I'm a dumb animal. Like, so I'm glad. I'm glad.
You're like, if we had the right kind of education, we actually probably wouldn't be doing half of it. I think that was the conversation me and Flo had.
And if people weren't so closed-minded.
I'm like, how harmful would they be if they didn't have such carcinogens in them from all the things they're putting in them? And then had we learned how to do these things in healthy ways and in moderation, then what would the landscape actually look like? Because Indigenous folks use this stuff for like healing and sending prayer, and it's a mixed bag. I just hate it when it always harms poor folks or increases taxes on poor folks who are the ones who are smoking because we're out here stressed out because we're poor folks. So,
and that's why one of the big things here was like, especially after the deaths of Eric Garner and George Floyd, there was this real big push to make sure that in passing this, we are focusing on the retailers, not people in the community. So passing Prop 31 does not make it illegal for anybody to have menthol products as a private citizen. It just makes it so that retailers are not allowed to sell them. And that is a very different thing. So I just want to make sure that we're really clear on that. And that was a big push, especially by, Black organizations that were like, what you're not going to do is, that was the first question that came up. So yeah, it's complicated.
It is.
So many of these
things.
Let's go.
So many of these things are too, right? Yeah. Let's get local a little bit. And again, California elections, we don't know much about anything. None of these races are over yet. So we can just do like a very small, broad overview. But locally at the county level, how is the Board of Supervisors race between Jaclyn Moreno, the Democrat, and Patrick Hume, right? The car dealer.
Yeah.
Republican. How's that going?
Well, it looks like Pat Hume is up. So we won't get the next dump until Friday, but right now he is leading over Jaclyn Moreno. And so that would change the balance of the Board of Supervisors to having essentially, this is the first time that district has been up in 25 years. So Don Natoli has been in that seat for at least that long. It might be more like 28 or 29 years. but it's definitely over 25. And so right now there's Sue Frost and Richard Desmond, who are both Republicans representing districts 3 and 4. And then there are 2 Democrats, Patrick Kennedy and Phil Cerna, representing districts 2 and 1 respectively. So this changes the balance from 3 Democrats, although Don Natoli is a more moderate member, but then again, so sometimes so are the other 2. 2 now being 3 Republicans and 2 Democrats. So that could have some really big implications, especially
It would be
Pat
devastating.
Hume, Pat Hume is anti-choice. He's all of these things, right? And so I'm really worried.
Ties to far right groups.
Yes.
Yeah. You know, Mac, you do a lot with Decarcerate Sacramento, and Decarcerate Sacramento does a lot of advocacy at the county level. So that's what when I look at something like that, I think about you and the other Decarcerate folks and kind of the implications for you and the fights that you do.
Yeah, we're actually, that's, I think, something that we're looking at just as much as we're looking at Measure O. And even Measure O, Jaclyn Moreno's seat, or I'm sorry, Don Natoli's seat, not having Jaclyn Moreno in it, really it would be a detriment to the work that we've been working towards for many years, and not even many, just a few, towards trying to get a change in our budgetary and policy priorities that the county has. We've been we're coming out of a recession, from a decade ago, and they're still acting like it's happening. And you can tell by the way that they're like stacking up their reserves instead of investing in the vital and much needed services, especially to the magnitude in which we need them. And unfortunately, Pat Hume, and you can hear it when he comes out and speaks, he's a status quo candidate. He's status quo when it comes to policies and recommendations. He's status quo when it comes to budget. And it actually terrifies me because he even wants to, it's not even so much status quo, because his idea of what punishment is and what punishment should be for is extremely detrimental to the work that we're trying to do, especially around people who live outside, people who are coming out to jail, people dealing with substance use or mental health crisis. He's very much a force you into compliance person. Which, I mean, like I said, when you have far right connections, that doesn't shock me that you want forced compliance.
Yeah.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean,
damn, they forced me.
Yeah, so we got to keep our eye on that one. I really hope things kind of turn in the other
I would
direction.
actively work to recall Pat Hume. That's how harmful it would be.
Mhm.
Like, I don't know if we can do that as an organization, but me as a person would actively work to try and get Pat Hume out of that seat, because that's how harmful it would be.
It's probably the most important race in our region. When I was looking at all the different elections, like that one, it's like, oof, that's a biggie, and she's so good and he's so bad. But yeah, we got a few weeks.
And it was so apparent. That's why I'm shocked it's so close. And I actually even told Don Natoli I couldn't believe that he backed him. I was like, I can't even believe that you gave him your endorsement. That shocked the shit out of me.
Yeah.
Considering the things that Don Natoli speaks about on the dais, and how he wants to invest in community, and he loves parks and he loves animals, and he gets the sheet for every single animal in the shelter every single day. He looks at it every single day. It just shocked me when I saw his name behind Pat Hume.
Yeah, it's one of those unconscionable things that, like, these people who you've talked to, you see the humanity in them, you're like, how can you land there? I think I've got a couple friends who've done that shit in elections. I will name no names, but let's move on to the city level. So there's 3 city council races going on. District.
Before we do that, we just want to talk briefly about the measures at the county.
Oh yeah, go for it.
So the brief answer is that most of the things that we were kind of rooting for ended up doing what we wanted them to do. So Measure A was the really regrettable transportation tax, and it appears slated for defeat. Measure B was the marijuana.
I heard the proponents of A were like they had the wind out of their sails weeks ago.
Because they had spent tons of money on this. I got multiple like yes on A mailers that were quite colorful and pretty and expensive. And then B
talking about climate change.
Right. Yeah. And then Measure B was the marijuana tax. It kind of was functioning a little bit like Measure L in the city, which we'll talk about in a moment, which is the youth fund. And so that one seems to be on its way to passage, which could, free up some dollars to be spent on some things that I think we all care about on this podcast. And then there was Measure D, which I'm trying to remember if that one I think we were in favor of it, and I think it was gonna go. It's slated to go yes. And Measure D was.
I don't remember either.
I know. I don't. Yeah.
Who
I need
cares?
to think about it. Yeah.
Am I
but
right?
basically, the measures in the county went well. The people not so much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so I gotta keep us moving because I really want to get to camp resolution.
Yes.
But city council races, there was District 1, 3, and 5 here in Sacramento. District 1, Lisa Kaplan won. No surprises there. She is the big, the real estate backed person. So I don't know. I think we're gonna get. People are saying she's like a little more progressive than moderate, but it's like I'm seeing another Angelique here, but I'll be happy to be proven wrong.
I hope not.
Yeah, we'll see.
I'm like, as long as somebody's willing to be open to community, open to learning, I'm into it. But Angelique was like one of those like white moms who was like, I know what's best for you, regardless of what you tell me your feelings and what your needs are. Like
That's the vibe I'm getting from Lisa. I'm worried about that. We'll see. And then District 3, it appears that Karina Talamontes is just a shave ahead of Michael Lynch. She's generally considered the more progressive candidate, even though she did take cop money. She took, I believe, $5,000 from the police, as well as she too was for Measure O, which is this sort of like harmful anti-homeless measure. But she is about 250 votes ahead. Again, super early, folks. We just don't know what we don't know.
I see her trending backwards though. Last night she came up pretty far on top, and then she's been trending back. So.
Okay, I haven't seen that. Yeah. And then her opponent is Michael Lynch. He runs a nonprofit for I believe it's a youth nonprofit to sort of help kids in underprivileged spaces to make it into higher education, kind of improve the outcomes of their lives, right? But he's taken hella real estate money as well and developers, and so it kind of tells you where he's going to land on a lot of the issues. So we've talked about this before. I guess I'm vaguely Talamontes, but like there's no perfect candidate in this one.
Yeah, I was vaguely Lynch, just in part because I thought he might be a little easier to appeal to than her. But I'm vaguely Lynch for the same reasons that Dave is vaguely Talamontes, which is just like, we land somewhere.
Yeah.
And I think I was more disappointed, actually. I'll just say, in Karina for taking the cop money and for being, a yes on O, than like Michael, it sort of felt like, okay, I kind of know where you land on these things. But for her, it just was giving me big Angelique vibes. And it felt a little bit like a bait and switch. And then I also just felt like she was just really bad on like being able to actually state anything clearly. Like there was a lot of political speak of like, let me tell you about myself again, giving those Angelique vibes of like, I'm not going to be specific about what I want to do. I'm just going to name issues that I know poll
Right.
well. And that to me was like a big red flag. So I'd rather you be able
That's
to
how
speak
Daryl Steinberg ran.
clearly about what you want to do, even if I don't agree, and we can engage like on the policy than to not. So
she is, if folks don't know, she is Angelique Ashby's chief of staff. That's the most conservative member of city council who will not be on it anymore because she's leaving District 1. But she's
the most conservative?
Well, Laloe, maybe Harris, I don't know. She's one of the three, in my opinion. But we don't know Karina. We don't know who she's going to be because she hasn't shown us who she's going to be. And
or has she?
That's another good point because all of her actions and the way she sort of can kind of like fuzz out the questions that you're asking her and kind of like give platitudes. It's like, is this the person we're going to get, or are we going to get somebody who stands up for what they believe in? Because I've had folks tell me she's a Bernie-crat, Dave. Like she, was for him in 2016, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, where I'm not seeing any of that.
So were white men who then voted for Donald Trump.
Right.
That doesn't mean anything to me.
Right.
But I guess that's another economic populism works, folks. But yeah, so we'll see how that race goes. And then District 5 is the biggie between Katie Maple and Tomiko Heim. Folks, if you listen, you know all about this race. A lot of money went into this from the real estate folks for Tomiko. And then Tomiko ended up like putting out some really scary mailers about like quote unquote tough love.
I have them saved. I'm going to turn them into a collage when this is done.
Yeah, just scary stuff about like the language against folks who are unhoused that like I don't know, like the race felt important before that, but then after that, that really frightened me a little bit.
Agree.
So Katie is up by about 250 votes there too, similar to Karina's race. And we don't know what we don't know. But interestingly, if these things do stand, that would be 3 women on the dais in city council, which would have, I assume for the first time ever, majority women city council, which I think is incredibly interesting.
It is. And it's a far departure from when Angelique was the only woman on council for so many of those years. So
I knew you'd say that. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
I like that you called it interesting. Let's just leave it there.
Yeah. Demographically, it's a shift. I don't know what that means policy-wise, but it's a demographic shift. That's a
I'm learning to be diplomatic. But this is so it could be a big demo shift. A much younger city council. And when I was looking at this, I was like, I think now like Rick Jennings is kind of like the go with the flow guy anyway, right? Of District 7. And I'm like,
I wish you would go with the flow.
Right? That's a little Flo Jean humor for you. A stand-up class is really working. So I think Flo, correct me if I'm wrong, he's the cool dad now of city council, right?
Yes, absolutely.
He's just like, he doesn't really portray much about his politics. He just likes to grill and like, I love everybody, And
like, lets you try on his Super Bowl ring. Like, he's, like, chill.
I guarantee he did that for you, didn't he?
He'll do it for everybody. Like, if you want to try it on, he'll let you try it on. He'll take a picture with you. Like, it's a whole vibe.
For folks who don't know, Flo grew up with Rick Jennings' daughter. So like, he actually knows if he is a cool dad or not.
Yeah.
So
no, he really is a cool dad. Like his daughter and I went to college together and are really good friends. And I've lived in several places with several of his family members. And he really is a cool dad. And he'll like help you move your stuff in and get situated and know the lay of the land. Like
maybe he'll help me vote for rent control and
I feel like I just learned something about Ray Jennings.
So that's locally. We don't have too much time. Flo, do you want to run through local measures real quick?
Yeah, sure. So Measure L Youth Fund, yay, it's up by like 20
Yeah, baby.
points. So looking great. Measure M was just to be able to make sure that like
So we know what the fuck's going on
yeah,
next
so we
time
know
we
actually
redistrict.
who your elected officials are when we have redistricting. I'm really surprised that like 30% of people just voted no. Maybe they just didn't understand, but I was like, chaos. Measure N is basically allowing the tourism money to be able to spend on something more than just the convention center. So Katie and Mai seemed really supportive of it, which made me a little less skeptical of it, and being able to do some economic development with those dollars. And then Measure O, unfortunately, it's not looking great for Measure O. Our baby.
But it's not over yet. No one's called it yet.
Yes.
We just gotta wait. So we love a good dump. The next dump is coming Friday afternoon at 4 p.m. We'll see kind of what the numbers are there. But I mean, it is what it is, right?
Yeah.
And what I said to a reporter on election day is no matter what, we keep fighting.
Yes.
Win or lose, right?
Yeah.
And that
built
doesn't change our
something?
game plan at all.
Yeah.
So I think all of
Right.
us here are pretty much on the same page on that. And you know, Mac, you and I were talking last night about there's something really special about this campaign, how galvanizing it was, how amazing it was to work with this group of disparate people who we've always known of each other, but never really everyone worked together on something. And these things, fights like this is where movements grow up. And I couldn't be anything more than optimistic after this, no matter what happens, no matter how this ends.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Absolutely. I mean, this would just be a continuation of status quo. And what I see and what I've gotten to witness for many years, but like really between 2020 and then definitely this round was the way that we all like reached our hands out, grabbed each other tight, and pulled each other close. And so our ability to build opposition and build towards liberation grew, and will be definitely something in power that we can wield together later, and from here on out. So I still have faith on the next coming dumps. I saw no on O. I saw more no on O than I saw anything else in this town. And even the Democratic Party candidates weren't pulling 30 people out to go canvassing.
But we're making people aware of it too. It's being brought to their attention because they're being told one thing, but really, actually, just come talk to us.
Yeah.
And we'll tell you what's going on.
Yeah,
absolutely. Okay, we're the public as well.
Yeah.
So I guess we gotta wait. We gotta see. But it's funny. Like I've never felt more positive after an initial return that, you know, felt a little sad.
Right.
But I do. And I think that would be a good time for us to switch over here. Because there's something really amazing happening. And here in Sacramento, that the unhoused community, as well as many advocates, have been building something called Camp Resolution. And I want, you know, this is why we have Joyce and Mac on here today. Can you two tell us what is Camp Resolution and why is it important?
Well, Camp Resolution. See, I live in the county. I'm an unhoused person, and I've been living on the county side with the park rangers there, not the American Parkway. But I have some family and friends that was staying over at the Colfax yard, and they swept them, and they moved away. Then they came back and moved away. They came back. This was just like a vicious circle. Well, I myself have been. I'm a very reclusive person. I don't do neighbors, but since I've been put into this elements, I've become very neighborly and try to get to know who I'm talking to, who I'm passing by, because we all have there's something to be said. And I would walk by the Colfax yard every day, and I would see the progress of what was not happening. When the Colfax was one of the master super plans of Steinberg, right? And
Right.
it was
Can we
supposed
explain to
to,
folks like Colfax was a location that was going to have some sort of shelter setup or some sort of
tiny homes built,
tiny homes?
and
Yes.
yes, and also the RVs that are there, they were gonna either have a tiny home, or they were gonna improve their RV somehow.
Yeah.
And this was promised to them by the city, and they complied with everything that they asked. The city asked of them. They swept them. They said, "Come back in a couple weeks whenever we're done with the project." What they do? They they just put a asphalt, $617,000, and a fence around it, and for from April until September, I have been watching nothing happening here.
So they
Uh,
paved this,
with,
they spent all this money
yes,
paving this, and then did
They
nothing with it, offered nothing,
did
no shelter
nothing,
for anyone.
nothing. They told the people to to move away so they could finish the project, and then come back when we're done with the project. They never told the people that they scrapped the what they were going to do.
Yeah, hundreds of $1,000s to sweep
Mm.
folks, hundreds of $1,000s to put up that fence and pave that parking lot, and then never spend any time or intention to
No,
go and talk to those folks about
none,
alternatives.
none.
And that's the point, right? The
The-
city had a $125 million comprehensive siting plan that they blew all of that money on, and
Mhm.
not a single site out of those 20 sites open.
That part.
And so that's kind of what brought
That's
these
why,
folks back.
yeah, well,
Yeah.
the folks were not going to come back because they'd been bullied and bullied. Well, about a year, last year, this will be my second year in the same spot on the county side, when I told the park rangers, you're not going to keep bullying me and sweeping me, and you're not doing it no more. And so I've been standing my ground there to have them come talk to us, at least talk to us. So the Colfax yard, uh, um, one day was walking by, coming home from the store, and saw that the gate was open, and I closed the gate, and then I went to all of the people that were swept from Colfax, and I went and talked to them and gave them the strength to come in there. I said, "I'll put my tent up in there." My wife is there, uh, and I'm over in the county. I come over. We're both back and forth, back and forth. So we have both camps. I've been unhoused for 6 years. This is the first time I've had two camps, and we're maintaining them. And the people have had or the people that are there now. This last rain we just had, this first rain we had, they are so, they're happy. I mean, I just don't know what the word is. They feel safe, that
Yeah.
they didn't have to worry about losing their whole entire everything by being swept, or by the natural disaster of the rain, because it is a little rough being in the
Mhm.
elements. Okay, my wife and I, we have we have tr- tried to do exactly what we have been asked of, the ordinances, the protocol that they go through. But if they don't want to play fair, then we're not going to play fair. So I went to all these people, and they said, okay. And they came, and they told, and I'm
That's
speechless about it. I didn't think that anybody would come back there and make the city follow through with it. They told them.
Yeah.
I'm
I
speechless
mean,
too. So Joyce,
I just
so you're going around to people who are like in different places on the parkway, who had been at that location but who were swept so it could get paved for no
yes,
goddamn reason.
for months.
And you are saying to them, hey, let's go back. And they are going back. You are sort of forming this like this
It's
sort of
formed. There is
community
a
that takes care of
self-governing
one
cabinet.
another, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
How many folks are there
We're
at this
trying.
point?
I think there's not 106 like there was when they swept. There is maybe let me just give me a moment to see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. There's about 50, 45 to 50
Okay.
there. There's the RV side, and then there's the people that are in their tents. We made sure that they were covered and safe for this first rain. We got them up off the ground. We got pallets underneath them. Gave them all new. All of them have new tents. We gave those to them. On
All not costing $4,000 a head,
no,
by the way.
no, no, no.
And being done by community-owned pennies, by the way.
Right.
Yeah, and the community is the outside of Sharon and I have spent our own money, and there's been community people from outside the structure of people, not the element people.
Right. Yeah.
You do
So
understand.
for folks who don't know, Sacramento has been dealing with a good amount of rain, and it's been very, very chilly in recent weeks.
Oh yes.
And last year, we had nearly 200 folks who were living unhoused die. And not only that, we have confirmed at least 8 people died of hypothermia. Obviously, these numbers are always undercounted, but
Well, I
there
saved
is-
two lives out there last year from that. 2 gentlemen came to me with hypothermia, and it was getting really bad. Yes, so this is a everyday thing. I'm on the side where it floods, and I would take the chance there than to be where to go. Where am I to go? Where are we to go?
Which is the point, right? Which is why we're even talking about Measure O, which is why we're even talking about this. Like, camp resolution really absolutely is the front line of this very real thing. When the city's talking about service resistance, what it really is it's service non-existent.
Exactly.
Here these folks are, they've come back to receive the promises that Howard Chan and Darrell Steinberg gave them, and now they're being told to kick rocks. And that is problematic, you know? It's like, even when they talk like Measure O, if this passes, then all it's going to do is now give these folks misdemeanors as they continue to just be moved around and around.
Yeah.
It's
My wife and I have never been in trouble with the law. And why should we be? I mean, I've never been arrested, but damn it, I will if you're going to try to take something away from me that's not constitutional. They're breaking the law. The only ones that break the law are them. And I'm saying Steinberg, the water people, the rangers, all of them, the county board of supervisors, they're all the only ones that are breaking the law here.
I think it's kind of funny. So
I'm just saying.
And so there's this
Right.
this line that the city's towing about how, like, first it was like we ran out of money. That's why you can't be here. But currently, right now, they're trying to say that there's the folks are living on a toxic site, and they're saying that this is why they didn't build anything.
Fucking
And I
sequel
think I need
argument.
to name real quick today. Yeah, and what I need to name real quick is, first of all, the public health crisis of a sweep outweighs whatever weird public health crisis you're saying is living on that land. But the real problem, the real cool part, though, is even further. We did some PRA work and found out that the city got a letter in December of 2021 saying that it was perfectly fine for for folks to live on.
By the way, that's a public record request
now?
for the listeners. But yeah, so these folks did a public records request. You all found that this is perfectly fine for humans to reside upon.
Yes.
I mean, that to me, it's like we see it every day. We get lied to all the time by our political figures, but it's like there's something really at once gratifying and then infuriating and devastating when something like that happens, because it's like, this is Joyce, like what you're building. It's like, it's all you want is people to take care of each other and to have a place to fucking be.
Right. All you want is a community.
Right. Can I just say that $617,000 was spent on that lot. Now, if they built $6,000 tiny homes, everybody in Sacramento who's unhoused could have been housed with a tiny house. That's 4 rooms, a bedroom, a bathroom that's detached, a kitchen and a living room.
Yeah.
What is going on here? What's going on with all this money? What are they doing with it? Because I've done the math, and so has my wife. And I brought the attention to the other unhoused people. Hey, look, we already live in a fishbowl. I'm tired of living in a fishbowl. It's time for them to live in a fishbowl. You know what I mean?
Mm.
I mean,
That's powerful.
that's how much. That's what that money would have. It could have housed everybody.
Everyone in the lot.
Yeah.
Yes. It's,
No, 10,000 people. All the in Sacramento. Yes, we did the math.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a lot of money to waste.
It is a lot of money to waste. And I just want to go back to something that you both were saying, Joyce. You were talking about, like, I've never been in trouble with the law, but I'm willing to for this. And it's always frustrating to me that people in our community who are the most vulnerable have to literally put themselves on the line for things that should be obvious to do, and that shouldn't be necessary. So, I just want to name that as well. Like, of course, your dedication is commendable, but also it shouldn't be required of you to have to risk arrest and risk being part of another really predatory system simply to be able to exist. I also want to just remind us, the law, I've always believed this, and I know everyone on this podcast does, that the law does not determine our morality. Because there was a time when, 3 of the 4 of us on this podcast were not, allowed to vote, where it was totally legal for the rest of you to own me, and to decide what it was you could do with my life, right? Like, there are just so many times, right? The ability to be able to have contraception and abortion was illegal at one, so all of these things tell us that just because the law says something is right or wrong doesn't mean that it has the moral high ground. And so, in this case, the idea that someone would arrest you, the idea that people were displaced and that people sat around and did nothing, and then the people in charge of that, one of whom is the city manager, just got a $27,000 raise, is despicable. I mean, just think about all of the tents that could have been purchased with that cost. Just think about all the services that could have been paid for
or the tiny homes that could have been built.
And
because that's the whole point. The city only wants to talk about shelter. We want to talk about housing. Where is our fucking housing?
Right. And speaking of which, that's
we shelter ourselves just fine.
I forgot. Measure D was just authorizing the affordable housing at the county goes away.
There we go.
Measure D is the one that reauthorizes it. I had to go look it up. I was like, because it doesn't actually fund anything. It just says we can do this, which shouldn't be necessary.
Because
but here we are, right? Like.
But they did, the elite did that. They actually took our right away, and that's why we have to bring it. Every single time we want to build affordable housing, we have to bring it to a vote. And it's because, real estate and developers all created laws on statewide levels that don't allow for us to be building this stuff. And it's absolutely crazy. And then when we talk about like our people who are living paycheck away or who are living outside and how these numbers continue to keep growing, it's simply because we can't afford the rat race, and then you want to blame us and then criminalize us, sweep us. You know what I think? And I do recognize we're almost at time. And so I wanted to maybe just give a quick thing, because the truth is this camp resolution is the solution.
It is.
Right? People being able to stay where they are at in their communities and to receive the services.
And they're going to work. There's more people there that work that they feel safe enough to go to work. I didn't mean to.
No, you're perfect. And so, and that's where I'm at. It's like, these are our neighbors. Okay. This is who's living outside right now. These are our neighbors. And camp resolution is the solution, because when they say, bring these things to us, we want these things. And then the city doesn't, that is a societal failure. That is not a failure of folks who live outside. That is a societal failure of us and our city government and our county government. And so again, in response to what Camp Resolution is trying to do, because they can't afford for unhoused encampments to be popping up like this, to force them to give them services that they don't have money to give, they're absolutely trying to squash this effort, just as they tried to squash any form of right to housing, and then bastardized our language by adding with the obligation to accept. And
Right.
and so what's happening right now is on November 16th,
Can
the
we
camp has been
first?
tagged for removal.
Okay, yeah. To talk to us about what is the urgency here? There has been a pushback from the city officials. What's going on? You're already saying it. Sorry.
Yeah, they've escalated for the last. I mean, from the moment they got there, they started sending letters to organizations, thinking that they were in representation of the camp, threatening them, talking about how toxic it is to live on the land. They have it all
Yeah, the
written
cops
down.
there every day now.
All the city's lies the entire way. But for the last 2 weeks, cops have been coming onto the land with DCR, which is the Department of Community Response, and they've been offering people bus passes and ID vouchers, and then telling them that they need to leave the land in the next week. So at first, it was tagged for Friday for Veterans Day, knowing that there's a couple veterans
Lovely.
out on the lot. They got shamed in the op-ed that just came out. And so then the city sent cops back out again in a vicious manner to bang on doors and beat on people's tents to tell them, okay, we're changed it. It's going to be your eviction date is actually the 16th. And we're going to lie and tell you it's because we want you to have more time to get your stuff out
Right.
with nowhere to go.
Let me ask you this.
And then let me just finish.
Okay.
And then and so what we're doing as a community before we get there is not only demanding everybody and their mom come and show up on November 16th, which is next Wednesday,
Well,
come
tomorrow.
and show up with folks. But in between then and now, we have a campfire, which I think you can talk to in a second, but we have a toolkit that we want folks to take a look at. It's tinyurl.com/support resolution. And in it has a call-in, an email campaign, and an ask for you to come with us to City Council next Tuesday at 5 p.m. to speak off agenda about the very real uh, about the demand to meet these folks where they're at and to engage with them in good faith and to otherwise leave them alone to their own self-determination and allow for the community that has already been supporting them this far continue the work that they're doing, not costing $4,000 a head, and people are just fine. And yeah, go and talk about the
One more
event.
time, I just want to say for folks, tinyurl.com/support resolution. All right. All you, Joyce.
And check them out on Instagram at Camp Resolution.
Oh, the IG.
What was I going to say? I
Thursday.
forgot. Oh, tomorrow, right? Tomorrow, I've been so busy with camp resolution and going to my other camp because I have my.
Oh, I hear you.
Anyways, I'm a little tired. So but Sharon, my wife Sharon, she knows more about the events that's happening tomorrow. There's several just to come and make it aware of. There's going to be some poetry there, some music, bands that are coming.
And this
some
is the
hot
day that this
dogs,
publishes. So it will be Thursday, November 10th, I believe, starting at 2 p.m. There will be poets, I believe some
That's
music
when-
as well.
Yes, at 2
We're going to
o'clock.
go all night long.
We'll go. Well, 2 a.m. will be sufficient enough. Like time bars close. I know. I mean, I don't know. You don't want to bring the cops there,
I want to have my Friday. Yeah. Oh my God.
Because when the Joneses throw a party, we throw a party.
It's a party. It's a party. It's a party. Hey.
Come on out.
Folks, this is it's a community event and it's something being put on by community members. And I really hope that people do come out for it because we're all neighbors and like this is in my view the fight of our decade generation, maybe like this is it. And I'm just so thankful for folks like you, Joyce, out there doing what you're doing.
The reason why we call it Camp Resolution is because we were throwing out ideas and names. I went around to all of the people there and asked them, what we should name it. and resolution is the name that they agreed and thought, because we're going to resolve this. I mean, they have to be held accountable for it.
Yep. And you're standing up with resolve, right? Like
Yes.
you
Yes.
will be unbowed, which is
Right.
I love that about you all.
Thank you.
So yeah, I mean, is there anything else? I think you both kind of put it out there, what's happening, what the concerns are, and how we can come celebrate and support. Anything else?
No, I think I just want to name, like, this is the offensive move, y'all. When we talk about no services, no housing, when we talk about the cycle of violence that happens to our neighbors who live outside, that this is the front line. This
Yeah.
is where the fight is happening, and
Right.
and together we win. Solidarity is key, and showing up and showing out, whether that's coming tomorrow for the open mic, whether that's calling and making those emails to every single city council
If
member
they
over
sweep,
the weekend, and then definitely showing up Tuesday night to city council, and then come back for the party we're going to have and stay the night and wake up and be a part of the support and eviction defense on Wednesday.
I don't. Yeah, if that would be just not right. I mean, it's just not right.
Yeah.
They need to
Yeah.
be the ones swept and see how it
Tend to
feels.
sweep them out of them seats.
Yeah, we're
Sweep
not
'em
we're
off
not
the
doing we're
dais.
not doing
That's
any
right.
harm.
Can we all bring brooms to City Hall?
There you go.
Oh yeah, that'd be a great idea.
So
ahead,
Mac
Flo.
and Joyce, can you just recap for us all of the calls to action for our listeners, just to make sure everybody is aware of when the opportunities are? Can you do it also in like order of when they're happening? So
Let me do it again.
Thursday, November 10th.
So tomorrow,
yes.
Thursday, November 10th, there is an open mic starting at 2 p.m., going till late into the night. Has food, music, poetry, art making. Then come over the weekend, go to tinyurl.com/support resolution to be able to use our email template to call and blast the city all weekend long before we all show up together on Tuesday, November 15th at 5 p.m. at City Hall to demand the camp resolution stay and be met in good faith, and then wake up or come and stay the night with us on Wednesday night and wake up Thursday morning to support with any form of eviction response and defense.
And this is Thursday, the 17th?
16th. And the
Wednesday
address
the
is
16th.
222.
Wednesday, the 16th.
So it's
Wednesday the
spend the night
16th.
after city council
Okay.
meeting and then wake up on the 16th.
Got
Okay.
it. Now I get it. Okay.
And then it's 2225 Colfax Street, which is just on the corner of Arden and Colfax.
All
Like I
right.
said, Instagram is Camp Resolution.
Yes.
Yeah, follow them on
Thank you.
Instagram. You two are incredible. Joyce, I haven't
Just
had much of a chance to hang with you before, other than like a little press conference here or there, but like I don't know, I just
come on out.
you're wonderful. Also, your hat, holy shit, that's an amazing hat.
Gives me life.
Thank you.
For folks who are just listening, it's like, how do you describe it? It's like a cat hat.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
cat in the hat.
It's so much more than that. It's
Yeah.
like I
Or we
gave
can
it
turn
such
it
a
around.
baseline description, but it is so good.
I'm mastering these auntie jokes at this point.
You really are, Flo.
Keep it going. They're way better than white dad jokes.
Oh wow.
Okay, everyone. All right. I've got some good jokes, some dad jokes.
Yeah.
But no, thank you so much for being with us
Seriously.
today. Mac, it's funny, we've been like, we've had all of your folks from Decarcerate on, and we haven't had you, so that's really fun. Joyce, just a joy. Something I forgot to do at the top of the show. Hey folks, if you like Voices River City and the thing that we're doing, you should become a patron. voicesrivercity.com. Nope, that's not true. Patreon.com/voicesrivercity, as little as $5 a month. If you love what we're doing, help us keep doing what we're doing, and become a patron. We do have an event coming up for patrons, a screening of a very important documentary on homelessness in Sacramento. More on that as that comes, because we got to set the dates on that, but it's coming up very soon. But that one is patrons only, because there's only one bathroom. But otherwise, you know where to find Voices River City. We love our listeners and our viewers. Let's keep fighting the good fight. And one more time, Mac and Joyce, just thank you so much for being here.
Hopefully we all get housed.
Seriously,
Absolutely.
from your lips to the powers of the universe.
To everyone. Yeah.
All right. Well, bye,
Have a
everyone.
good evening.